The doors to my courtroom didn't just open, they parted like the Red Sea, and I walked through them with the weight of the law on my shoulders and absolutely zero patience for nonsense in my pocket. Bird was standing there, looking stoic as always. I gave him a curt nod. I didn't need to say anything. He knows the drill. I adjusted my robe, sat down, and looked at the docket in front of me. My eyes narrowed immediately. Daughter suing mother. I hate these cases. I despise them. There is something fundamentally broken in the universe when a child drags the woman who birthed her, who wiped her behind, into a court of law over cash. It smells like rot. It smells like entitlement. I took a sip of water, looked up, and saw them. On the plaintiff's side stood a young woman, maybe 25. Let's call her what she looked like. Trouble. Bleached hair, too much makeup for 10, AM, and an attitude that screamed, I'm the main character. She was leaning on the podium like she was ordering a drink at a dive bar. Her name was Jessica Miller. On the defendant's side was the mother, Brenda Miller. She looked like she'd been dragged through a hedge backward. Shoulders slumped, clutching a worn-out purse like a shield, eyes red-rimmed. She looked defeated before I even opened my mouth. Bird, call the case, I said, my voice cutting through the silence. Case number 409. Bird rumbled. Plaintiff Jessica Miller is suing her mother Brenda Miller for unpaid loans and emotional distress. Total amount $5,000. I leaned back in my chair and let the silence hang there for a second. I wanted them to feel it. I wanted this girl to feel the laser beam of my gaze burning a hole right through her cheap blouse. Miss Miller, I said, addressing the daughter. I kept my voice low, dangerous. You are suing your mother. Yes, Your Honor, Jessica said. She popped her hip out. She didn't look ashamed. She looked annoyed that I was asking. Put your hand down, I snapped. She flinched. Stand up straight. You are in a court of law, not a beach party. You are suing your mother for $5,000? Yes. How old are you? 26. 26, I repeated, letting the number drip with disdain. Are you married? No. Any children? No. Employed? She hesitated. That split-second pause told me everything I needed to know. I'm in between jobs right now. I'm an influencer. I let out a short, sharp laugh. I couldn't help it. An influencer. That means you're unemployed. You have no job. You have no income. And yet, you are here claiming you loaned your mother, a woman who I assume has worked her entire life, money? Where did you get the money to loan her, Miss Miller? Did it fall from the sky? I had savings, Jessica shot back, her face flushing pink. I worked at a boutique for 2 years before I started my brand. I had money saved up. She came to me crying, saying she was going to lose the house. I helped her, and she promised to pay me back. I shifted my gaze to the mother. Brenda was looking down at her shoes. Madam, I said to Brenda, look at me. She looked up. Her eyes were watery. Did you borrow money from your daughter? Well, Your Honor, it wasn't exactly a loan, Brenda stammered. Her voice was weak, shaky. I hate mumblers. Stop, I raised my hand. Uncross your arms. Speak into the microphone. Was it a loan? Or was it a gift? Or was it a hallucination? Which is it? She gave me money to help with the bills, Brenda said, her voice trembling. But she was living in the house. She's been living with me rent-free since she was 21. I told her the money would count towards her room and board. I looked back at Jessica. Is that true? Do you live with your mother? Jessica rolled her eyes, a massive, dramatic roll. I stay there sometimes, but I have my own life. That doesn't give her the right to steal my savings. You stay there sometimes? I picked up the file and slammed it down on the desk. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Define sometimes. Do you sleep there? Yes. Do you eat her food? Sometimes. Do you use her electricity, her water, her internet so you can be an influencer? Yes, but there is no but. I cut her off. You are 26 years old. You are mooching off your mother, And now you have the audacity to sue her because she didn't pay you back for money used to keep the roof over your head? It was a specific loan for her car payment, Jessica yelled, losing her cool. She said, Jessica, lend me $2,000 for the car or they will repossess it and I will pay you back when my tax refund comes. She never paid me. She went to a casino instead. The air in the room shifted. A casino. Now we were getting somewhere. I looked at Brenda. Is that true? Did you go to a casino? Brenda's face went pale. She gripped the podium so hard her knuckles turned white. I went for a weekend with my sister. It was a birthday trip. I didn't spend her money. You didn't pay her back, though, I pressed. Did you get a tax refund? Yes, Brenda whispered. And how much was the refund? $3,000. And did you give any of it to your daughter to repay the $2,000? No, Brenda said, looking defiant for the first time. Because she owes me thousands in back rent. Why should I pay her when she eats me out of house and home? I took off my glasses. I rubbed the bridge of my nose. This was a mess. A classic, toxic, dysfunctional mess. But something wasn't sitting right. The daughter was too aggressive, too polished in her anger. The mother was too defensive about the casino. Miss Miller, I pointed at the daughter with my glasses. You claim this was a loan. Do you have a contract? It was a verbal agreement. She's my mother. Don't play the she's my mother card now, I snapped. You didn't care she was your mother when you filed this lawsuit. If you want to play business, you need paperwork. Did you send her a text message, an email, a carrier pigeon? I have texts. Jessica grabbed a stack of papers. I printed them out. Bring them here, I ordered. Bird took the papers from her and handed them to me. I put my glasses back on and started to read. Mom, I need that $2,000 back. You said tax time. Response, I know, Jess. Stop nagging me. I'll get it to you. Mom, I saw you checked in at the casino on Facebook. What the heck? Response, mind your own business. I looked up. Brenda, this doesn't look good for you. You acknowledged the debt. You said, I'll get it to you. You didn't say, I'm keeping it for rent. You didn't say we are square. You said you'd pay her. I was just trying to get her to shut up, Brenda cried out. She screams at me. She throws things. I'm afraid of her sometimes. I froze. You're afraid of her? I asked, my voice dropping an octave. Brenda nodded, tears spilling over now. She gets very angry when she doesn't get her way. I'm old, Judge. I'm tired. I just wanted peace. I looked at Jessica. She wasn't looking at her mother. She was checking her fingernails. That lack of reaction, it chilled me. A normal daughter would be outraged or hurt or denying it screaming. Jessica just looked bored. Jessica, I said sharply. What? She snapped. Your mother says she's afraid of you. Do you scream at her? She's dramatic, Jessica scoffed. She's trying to make me look bad so she doesn't have to pay. Look, Judge, the law is the law. She borrowed money. She admitted it in the text. She needs to pay me. I don't care about her sob story. I stared at this young woman, cold, ice cold. You know, I said slowly, there is one thing I hate more than a mooch, and that is a bully. You are 26. You live in her house. You admit that. How much rent have you paid in the last 12 months? 0, Jessica said proudly. She never asked for rent until I filed this suit. That's retaliation. Retaliation? I laughed. You think this is an employment tribunal? You are a guest in her home, a guest who has overstayed her welcome by about 8 years. I turned to Brenda. Madam, why haven't you kicked her out? I can't, Brenda whispered. Why not? Because Brenda paused, looking terrified. She glanced at her daughter, then back at me. Because if I kick her out, she said she'll tell everyone about the account. The room went silent. I saw Jessica's eyes widen. For the first time, the smug mask slipped. She lunged toward the microphone. Mom, shut up! Hey, I slammed my hand on the desk. You shut your mouth! You do not speak! I turned my full attention to the mother. I smelled blood in the water. This wasn't about a $2,000 car loan anymore. This was about leverage. What account, Brenda? I asked, my voice soft but firm. Tell me. Now? Brenda took a deep breath, shaking like a leaf. My late husband, Jessica's father, he left a trust. But not for her, for my grandson, Jessica's son. I blinked. Wait a minute. You told me earlier you had no children? I shot a look at Jessica. You lied to me? Jessica looked like a deer in headlights. I don't have custody. He lives with his dad. It doesn't count. It counts when I ask you a question. I yelled. You lied to me within the first 30 seconds of this trial. That is a very stupid thing to do. So there is a grandson, and there is a trust? Yes, Brenda continued, gaining a little courage now that the secret was out. My husband left $50,000 for our grandson's college. Jessica, she wants me to sign it over to her. She says she needs it for her business. I told her no. That's why she's doing this. She's suing me for these little amounts to bleed me dry until I give her access to the trust. I sat back, absorbing this. The air in the courtroom was electric. The influencer daughter wasn't just a brat, she was a predator. And the mother wasn't just a victim, she was the gatekeeper of a fortune she was desperately trying to protect. I looked at Jessica. She was glaring at her mother with pure venom. Is this true? I asked Jessica. Are you trying to extort your mother for your son's trust fund? It's my money, Jessica screamed. He's my kid. I should control it. She's stealing my inheritance. It's not your inheritance if it was left to your son, I shouted back. You don't even have custody. You are a piece of work, lady, a real piece of work. I looked down at the papers. This case had just exploded. I needed to peel this back layer by layer. I wasn't just deciding on $5,000 anymore. I was deciding on the moral character of two women who clearly hated each other. Bird, I said, not taking my eyes off Jessica. Get me the rest of those texts. I want to see everything. She didn't print everything, Brenda blurted out. I have my phone. I have the messages where she threatened me. Bring the phone, I ordered. Brenda fumbled in her bag and walked up to the bench. Jessica looked like she wanted to tackle her. Don't you move, I warned Jessica. You twitch, and I'll hold you in contempt so fast your head will spin. I took the phone from Brenda. I scrolled, and what I saw made my stomach turn. It wasn't just texts. It was a campaign of terror. Sign the paper or I'll call the cops and say you hit me. I'm going to burn the house down with you in it if I don't get that money. I looked up at Jessica. My face must have been stone because she took a step back. You, I said, my voice quiet, are a very dangerous young woman. But Jessica wasn't done. She squared her shoulders. That's taken out of context. And that's not what this case is about. This case is about the loan. You have to rule on the loan. You can't judge me on my private texts. Oh, watch me, I said. You came into my playhouse. You play by my rules. And right now, the rules say I'm going to find out exactly what kind of game you're playing. I leaned forward. We are going to take a recess, I announced. I want to study these texts. And when I come back, Miss Miller, you better pray to whatever deity you believe in that you have a better explanation than it's out of context. Because right now, I'm looking at you and I see a fraud. I stood up. Bird, clear the room. I turned and walked out, my robe billowing behind me. But I knew this was far from over. I had just scratched the surface. I returned to the bench, the phone still in my hand. It felt heavy, not because of the device itself, but because of the ugliness contained within its memory chips. I sat down slowly. I didn't look at the docket. I didn't look at Bird. I looked straight at Jessica Miller. She had reapplied her lip gloss during the recess. Of course she had. Priorities. Miss Miller, I began, my voice deceptively calm. I have read through the text history between you and your mother. It was illuminating. Jessica tossed her hair. Like I said, we have a volatile relationship. She knows how to push my buttons. Buttons? I repeated. Let me read you what you wrote on November 14th. I put my glasses on and read from the screen. If you don't sign the trustee transfer papers by Friday, I'm calling CPS and telling them you leave drugs around the house when my son visits. I'll make sure you never see him again. A gasp rippled through the gallery. Even Bird shifted his weight. I lowered the phone and peered over my glasses. You threatened to frame your own mother for child endangerment? To use the legal system as a weapon to blackmail her? I didn't mean it, Jessica stammered, her face finally losing that arrogant sheen. I was just angry. She controls everything. She won't let me grow. You're 26, I barked. You're fully grown. You're just not ripe. You're rotten. And this? I scrolled down. I hope you die in your sleep so I can get the house. I threw the phone down on the desk. You are a charmer, aren't you? She provoked me, Jessica shrieked, pointing a manicured finger at her mother. She promised to pay me back the $2,000. That's what this case is about. Stick to the case. You have to rule on the money. Oh, I'm sticking to the case, I said, leaning forward. You want to talk numbers? Let's talk numbers. You want strict adherence to the law? Let's do that. I grabbed a notepad and a pen. You are suing for $5,000, $2,000 for the alleged car loan, and $3,000 for emotional distress. Is that correct? Yes, she said defiantly. Dismissed, I said instantly. What? Jessica blinked. The emotional distress claim, dismissed. You don't get paid for having hurt feelings, especially when you are the one telling your mother you hope she dies. That is garbage. So we are down to $2,000. I wrote $2,000 on the pad and circled it. Now, I continued. Let's talk about your living situation. You admit you live in her house. Yes. You admit you pay zero rent. She never asked for it. She doesn't have to ask, I yelled. When you are an adult, you pay your way. That is the social contract of life. But let's look at the law. This is a court of equity. You want equity? Let's calculate the value of room and board. I looked at Brenda. Madam, how many bedrooms is your house? 3 bedrooms, Your Honor, Brenda said softly, wiping her eyes. And what would a room in your neighborhood rent for? Probably about $600 a month. $600. That's cheap. Let's use that. I started scribbling. $600 a month. 12 months, a year. That is $7,200 a year. You have lived there rent-free since you were 21. That is 5 years. I did the math in my head instantly. That is $36,000. I looked at Jessica. You are standing here quibbling over $2,000 when you have sponged $36,000 worth of housing off this woman? And that's not including food, electricity, or the water you use to shower off that attitude. That's not fair, Jessica stomped her foot. You can't charge back rent if there was no lease. I can do whatever I want, I shot back. This is my courtroom. And in my courtroom, we look at the principle of unclean hands. You cannot come to court seeking justice when your own hands are dirty. And your hands, young lady, are filthy. Jessica's face twisted. She realized the money was slipping away. She decided to change tactics. She started to cry, but it wasn't a sad cry. It was a performance. Shoulders shaking, no tears. I just want to provide for my son, she wailed, covering her face. I'm a single mother, trying to make it in a hard world. She's holding me back. The trust fund. I could start a business. I could make a life for us. I watched her for a moment, unmoved. Stop it, I said flatly. She stopped instantly. You don't have custody of your son, I reminded her. Why? Because his father has a good lawyer. No, I said. Courts generally want children to be with their mothers unless there is a compelling reason not to. Why does the father have full custody? Jessica stayed silent. She picked at her cuticles. Brenda, I turned to the mother. Why does the father have custody? Brenda took a deep breath. She looked at her daughter with a mixture of pity and fear because Jessica left him alone in the apartment when he was 2 years old to go to a concert in Las Vegas. The neighbors called the police. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. You could hear a pin drop. I looked back at Jessica. Her jaw was tight. She didn't deny it. Beauty fades, I said to her, my voice dropping to a low, dangerous register. But dumb is forever. You left a toddler alone to go to a concert? It was only for 2 days, Jessica blurted out. Only for 2 days? I repeated, incredulous. That is 48 hours. A child can die in 48 seconds. I sat back, disgusted. And you want control of his $50,000 trust fund? You want to start a business? What business? Posting pictures of yourself online? I have a brand, she insisted. I have followers. You have delusions, I countered. You are not an influencer. You are a cautionary tale. I turned to Brenda. Do you have the documents for the trust? Yes, Your Honor. I am the sole trustee until my grandson turns 25. Good, I said. Keep it that way. Guard that money with your life, because if she gets her hands on it, it will be gone in a week on handbags and trips to Vegas. I object, Jessica yelled. You're biased. You just hate young people. I don't hate young people, I said calmly. I hate lazy people. I hate entitled people. And I really hate people who mistreat their mothers. I looked at the docket again. I had everything I needed, but I wasn't just going to dismiss the case. I needed to ensure this woman couldn't torment her mother anymore. Jessica, you said earlier that you loaned your mother this money for a car payment. Brenda, did you eventually pay the car payment? Yes, Your Honor. I worked double shifts at the diner. So the car is safe? Yes. And Jessica, I turned to the daughter. You claimed you used your savings for this loan. But looking at your bank statements here, which were included in your evidence packet, I see a deposit of $2,000 the day before the loan. Where did that come from? Jessica froze. She hadn't expected me to look that closely at the evidence she provided. It was a gift. From whom? A friend. Which friend? Just a guy. A guy, I nodded. A guy gave you $2,000, and you immediately gave it to your mother. And now you want her to pay you back so you can have the money twice. Is that it? It was my money once he gave it to me. You are a hustler, I said, shaking my head. But you're not a very good one. I closed the folder. The sound was final. Stand up, I ordered both of them. They stood. Jessica looked furious. Brenda looked hopeful, but terrified. Miss Miller, I addressed the daughter. You came here expecting a payday? You thought you could bully your mother in public the way you bully her in private. You thought I would look at the text, I'll pay you back, and ignore the context of abuse, extortion, and the $36,000 in free rent you've consumed. I paused for effect. You were wrong. Brenda, I said to the mother, you have a problem, and the problem is standing to your left. You love her, she's your daughter, but you are enabling a monster. If you continue to let her live in your house, she will destroy you. She will drain you dry and step over your body to get to the trust fund. I know, Brenda wept, I know. Then do something about it, I commanded. The law can only do so much. You have to lock the door. I looked at Jessica one last time. You want a judgment? Here is your judgment. I raised my gavel. Plaintiff's case is dismissed. Dismissed with prejudice, which means you can never sue for this again. Jessica's mouth dropped open. But, quiet, I snapped. I am not done. Judgment for the defendant. And I added, looking at Brenda, did you file a counterclaim for the harassment? Brenda shook her head. No, Your Honor. I didn't know how. Pity, I said, because I would have given you every penny. But I can do this. I leaned into the microphone. If you ever, and I mean ever, threaten your mother with false police reports again, or threaten to harm her, and it comes back to my desk, I will personally call the district attorney and have you prosecuted for extortion. Do you understand me? Jessica paled. She looked at her mother, then at me. The bravado was gone. She was just a small, mean girl who had been caught. Do you understand me? I repeated, louder. Yes, she whispered. Good. I slammed the gavel down. We're done. Bird, get them out of here. I stood up and turned my back on them before they could even move. I didn't need to see Jessica storm out. I didn't need to see Brenda crying tears of relief. I knew what happened. Justice happened. I walked back to my chambers, the adrenaline fading into a familiar sense of satisfaction. Another day, another delusional soul schooled in the reality of life. I sat at my desk, took a sip of lukewarm tea, and looked at the next file. Dog bite case. Perfect, I muttered to myself. At least dogs are loyal.